Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Augmented Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Blue Leaf. On this episode of the show, John Prendergast and I are joined by Andrew Crowell, the Vice Chairman of Wealth Management at D.A. Davidson Co, and we're going to be talking about how you can improve your ability to attract and retain the heirs and extended family members of your clients. This is a really big deal. As we discussed on prior episodes, the majority of financial advisors are relying very heavily on market growth and not consistently bringing on new clients. That, coupled with the risks to your business that may arise if you aren't creating solid connections with the heirs and extended family members of your clients, makes this episode one of the most important we've recorded to date. Now, before we get to the conversation with Andrew, please do take a moment to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. We're active on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, the YouTube, so wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest for the show, please feel free to hit us up. Shoot us an email, podcast@blueleaf.com, or swing by the website, or hit us up on the socials. We're active on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you hang out. We're probably there too, okay? All right, let's get to our conversation with Andrew Crowell. Well, Andrew Crowell, John Prendergast, so wonderful to see you. Happy Cinco de Mayo to you both.
Thank you. To you as well.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Exactly, it's great. We were joking before we clicked record that we should have had beers with us. Tres Cerveza would have been great, but awesome. Margaritas, whatever. We'll plan better for next year. We'll redo this next year and make sure that we're all prepped for getting our party on the show. All right, so listen, Andrew, we're super excited to have you on the show. We've been talking about this topic a lot lately, about really having financial advisors expand their ability to not only retain their clients and retain the heirs of their clients, but expand their business into reaching extended family members and extended members of their network. And, you know, this show idea with you really popped up from another podcast you and I recorded together, in which you were talking about financial literacy and how important it is for financial advisors to kind of really get out into the community and spread the word, right? Spread the financial literacy gospel, if you will. And one thing you mentioned in that conversation that just lit me up was how powerful it can be for a financial advisor to teach financial literacy to the children of and the grandchildren, I guess, of their clients, because very often affluent or wealthy or ultra high net worth clients, their kids aren't always as financial literate as one would expect, just because they're going to be coming into a lot of money. So I thought we may just jump in there. I wonder if you wouldn't mind just kind of talking a little bit about your financial literacy programs that you and your team have, and kind of the origin story of that type of stuff, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me back, Mike, and John, good to see you. Yes, this idea was born out of the reality that I had many high net worth clients of my own ask me if I would talk to their kids about money, saving, investing. They said, you know, my kids aren't going to listen to me, but they probably will listen to somebody else. And so naturally for our clients, we would do that at a heartbeat. But I then realized after many of those sessions with the children that, gosh, April is Financial Literacy Month in the United States, and we know that financially we are not as literate as we should be. And here we are, one of the most affluent countries on the planet. How can it be that we're allowing kids to graduate high school without a basic life skill like finance and basic financial concepts? No wonder we have people getting into credit card debt and not saving enough for retirement. They just haven't been educated the way they should have. So what started with my clients' children quickly branched out, and we piloted a program with the YMCA of Los Angeles in 2018. And we took 3 of their 27 locations, different neighborhoods, different demographic constructs, and piloted a 4-week series on financial literacy. First week was about banking and the importance of money. Second week was on your first job and your first paycheck, and sort of talking about withholding and FICA and what are these things. The third week, we get actually into investing, basics of investing. And then the final week was college and how to pay for it. Many kids just didn't have college on the radar, or they thought it was off the table because it was too expensive. And we talked about everything from how financial aid works and what the FAFSA website's all about, but also about the tremendous number of grant and scholarship capabilities that are available to students today. So anyways, that first 2018 was successful. In 2019, we went from the 3 pilot programs to 12 physical locations. You know what happened in 2020? We were all sent home. So we did the program virtually to all 27 locations. And then last year, not only did we do it also to 27 locations, but we recorded it in Spanish and we subtitled it, and it's now a permanent part of the learning library that the YMCA has for its members. So I feel like we built some shelf life with that. And then quickly just wrapping up, last year, because of the success of that, we as a company decided to kind of do an open call for volunteers and see if out of our entire footprint, we couldn't get more ambassadors to take this content into their local communities and look to source opportunities, maybe with a Boys and Girls Club or a synagogue or a community after school program. And we had 46 of our associates come forward and say they would actively source and seek out opportunities in their community. So I'd say the biggest one of those, found out that 21 locations of the Channel Islands YMCA, which stretches up the California coastline, all also receive the content. So cool. Bit by bit, I feel like we're getting the word out, and we're trying as our part to move the needle on financial literacy in our country with the young people.
That's fantastic.
What a fantastic initiative. I mean, it's amazing because it's right in your power alley about what you talk to clients about, but you've also turned it into an equity issue. I mean, you're really working as a company now on equity broadly. I mean, let's face it, money's not spread evenly, and it's not supposed to be spread evenly per se, but everybody's supposed to get an even opportunity, and literacy is a huge part of that. So, I mean, big applause there for that kind of a program.
Well, thank you. It's the tip of the iceberg, and we need to intentionally keep going after it, expanding it. But I think the big aha was, we in our profession talk about the nobility of this profession, that we are, helping people attain their financial goals, but we're doing that with paying clients. So yes, it's a business relationship and so on and so forth. But that content that you mentioned, John, if an advisor was willing to invest an hour a week for 4 weeks, they could change the trajectory of a young person's life that may never become their client, but they're paying it forward. And this literacy gap, hopefully over the coming years, will gradually close. We saw it wide open during the pandemic. As you say, money's not spread evenly, and vaccines weren't spread evenly, and the disease didn't spread evenly, and it widened the gap, and it really shined a spotlight on where some of the inequities are. And I just hope that advisors will look around their local communities and look for those opportunities. It's not hard. It just takes intentionality.
Yeah, I just think it's really smart to be trying to, help close the wealth gap by closing the literacy gap. It's smart, and it's the right thing to do. As you mentioned, you talk about the nobility of the profession, and if you're going to be noble, you have to act nobly, and this is a great example of that kind of a program.
I tell you one other quick learning from this, not surprisingly, I think the advisors who invest that time might even get more out of it than the people that they're talking to. They realize, wow, this stuff really does matter, and what I do really does have importance. And these young kids, they deserve to have opportunity in front of them, and maybe they weren't born in a family where people did save and invest, or where people did go to college, but that doesn't mean they can't. And so I see these advisors, these 46 advisors, sitting up more straightly and proudly today than they were before they volunteered for the program, simply because it reinforced for them, gosh, we're not selling staplers here. We're dealing with something that's really important to people and can really help improve the quality of their life.
What's really interesting to me, I've experienced this in my own life, and I wonder if you have as well. Andrew, is that, oftentimes you learn a lot when you teach something, right? You get better at the thing that you do, even though you think, hey, listen, I know my stuff. I know how to, construct a portfolio that's well balanced for my client's goals. I know how to do all those types of things. But then you have to go out and explain it to somebody who's starting at a lower level of knowledge than you. And so you're like, okay, well, how do I break this down so that they can understand it and then they can take action on it? And as you find yourself explaining that thing, you realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm learning something a little bit new. And not only that, I'm getting better at communicating this. And so then when I do sit down with the paying client, the client who has assets to manage, wow, suddenly I'm a little better at this, aren't I? Right? Because I've had the repetitions here.
Right. Very true. I had a phrase in one of my early coaching sessions with the group of ambassadors. I said, leave the alphabet soup at the door.
Yeah.
We got some quizzical looks, and I said, I'm talking alpha, beta, standard deviation. I said, this is going to mean nothing to this population that you're probably going to go talk to. You need to really simplify and get it in terms they can understand. And so it's funny, the first couple, they catch themselves and then they realize, all right, leave the alphabet soup at the door. I've got to come in and talk at a cleaner, clearer, less academic level on this important topic.
And it's probably good advice for when they're speaking to their regular clients.
Yeah.
The clarity of your communication is often dictated by its simplicity. So,
absolutely.
It's funny thinking about this intergenerational issue, and I think it's really interesting how you connected the needs of your wealthy clients' children to the needs of the broader society. But thinking more generationally, every generation feels like they're so different from their parents, and maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Certainly some cultural and technical references bridge the gap. And I think, though, from my perspective, millennials and Gen Z, are truly different. They do have different cultural touchstones. And I'm wondering what it is that you tell your advisors who might be in their 40s or 50s or even 60s. What do you talk to them about how to make a connection with those younger generations?
Really important question, and I don't think I or anybody's doing it perfectly, but I'll tell you, most advisors have not evolved their business, their practice to embrace modern communication methods. If they're still using the old telephone as their primary communication vehicle, and they never got on email, and they don't text message, and they haven't embraced virtual meetings with Zoom or what have you, then they're missing out on the way in which these generations are now communicating. And they may find and call and leave a message for one of their clients' kids. I wouldn't be surprised if they got a text message back to their cell phone rather than a call back. I know when I call my kids who are in their 20s, they don't answer the phone. I get an emoji or a text message back. So it's a different way of communicating. So I'd say, number one, communication methods have evolved and advisors need to evolve with it. Number two, let's face it, social media is where the news and information flow seems to be happening. And so many advisors have been afraid to enter into that arena. And it's understandable that they might have some trepidation because there's a lot of compliance requirements around that, what you can do, what you can't do, how you archive and what have you. But the tools are now out there to use social media as a valid communication channel. And I think we have to, as an advisory community, get over the technophobia, embrace these new channels, and it's got the added benefit of being able to humanize you to clients. If you put a display ad in a newspaper or in a magazine, okay, it tells whatever the story is and whatever the images are that you place there. But gosh, you develop a presence on LinkedIn, you can evolve. You could have weekly insights that you're sharing that show that you're responsive not just to market trends, but maybe geopolitical trends or maybe sport outcomes, with the Super Bowl, whatever it is. And I think putting a human face is also a helpful way of building a bridge to those younger generations. Because let's face it, if anybody's been doing this business long enough, they've lost an important client because that client passed away and they had not built a relationship with the beneficiaries. Maybe the kids didn't even live in the same state as their parent did or their grandparent did. And boy, there's nothing more disappointing than watching the ACAT transfer out of those assets you had worked so hard to shepherd along the way for many years. And could that have been avoided? Quite possibly by having gotten to know that next generation and having adapted to the communication modes that they're conversant in. You don't want to be your father's Oldsmobile, right? You want to be your kid's Tesla or something so that they go, I think he is relevant. Yeah, I got a buddy out of college who does that financial advice stuff too, but this individual looks like they get it, and I'll give them a shot. At least then the assets have a chance of sticking for a period of time. But we have to evolve.
Yeah.
Your comment about humanity is really, really sticks with me. And I know we spoke about this when we spoke before about humanity being maybe potentially key to get over that nervousness about the use of social media, right? Most of the rules and compliance are around business usage, trying to sell something to somebody or trying to tell them something about returns or any of these kinds of things. And if they just follow your advice of being human, you're in compliance. Hey, talking about the ball game or something more personal puts a human face on and avoids essentially all of the compliance challenges. So I think it's wonderful advice.
Yeah. We have an advisor on one of the social media platforms, and every Friday he posts his weekend insights. And what it basically is it's a hiking trail he wants to tell people about, or it's a sporting event that he can't wait to watch or that he's going to, or it's a concert that's coming to town. And it has zero to do with business, but it shows that he's a human being and that going into the weekend, he's going to unplug and do something stimulating and fun. And I think that's attractive to people. They want to know that the advisor they're working with that has a life too. And occasionally even put a picture of a kid or a nephew or you at a volunteering effort like the MoneyWise program that we do. And it shows there's more to life than sitting in front of a quote screen all the time.
One of the things that I've found useful over the years in connecting with younger folks that may not be as intuitive as people think, but it's super easy is show that you're interested in the person, right? That you're interested in new things, but you're interested in like when they are sharing things on social media. I think, I've done a lot of, seminars and so forth on social media usage for financial advisors. And very often they're so worried about what they're going to say. Oh, what do I say? What do I share? I don't like the content that our company sends us. I don't know how to send the right message. It's like, you know what? How about you listen and you pay attention to what your network is sharing, right? And if they share something interesting, click the like button, comment on it. Like, oh, that looks like you had a really fun time at that place. Oh, this is fascinating. I've never heard about this new social network that you're using. Tell me a little bit more about it. Whatever that is, like show some level of interest. It's that whole, like, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That, kind of old school sales phraseology, but it actually is true. Just be interested in people. It goes a long way.
It absolutely does. And I tell you, any advisor who really wants to develop a sticky long-term practice needs to heed your advice there, because there are tells daily in social media, right? Somebody announces the birth of a child, or somebody announces that they've changed jobs. Those are advisor touch points that can be capitalized upon. So I'm not saying use social media for business development purposes only, but I'm saying somebody might say, well, Mike, that's good advice, but I'm just clicking a like button at their Little League game or something like that. Well, if they go to the Little League World Series, that's kind of a big deal. But, so I think it's true. There are even tools out there, if advisors look for them, that are kind of almost like scouring the social media feeds, looking for you can put in your clients' email addresses or what have you, or their usernames on these platforms, and it will try to jolt you or toggle you when it sees a potential life event or something important that you should note, a birthday to whatever. Hopefully they already know that, but it's a very dynamic channel, and I think a lot of advisors haven't embraced it yet, and they should.
Little free tip on that, by the way. There's some free tools on most of the social networks have the ability to allow you to make lists of the people you're connected with. And so if you have a list of clients that you're connected with on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, go in there and kind of make the little list. And so now anytime there's an update from your client, you can just go and look at the list. You don't have to look at the entire universe of Facebook. You can go and just look at this little segment of your people that are your contacts. They don't know you've put them on the list. You just know. Now you skim through your client list and see if there's anything that I need to say. If all of a sudden you see there's a death in the family from your client, and the first thing on their mind wasn't, hey, I should call my financial advisor. It's like, hey, my mom died. I'm going to deal with that. Now you know to send flowers. Now you know to reach out and be there and all those types of things. So little free tip from this show.
It's a great tip.
It's funny. We were talking a little bit in our prep show about some of the things that to do and that you recommend. And one of the things that got me thinking is like the family office, right? The family office. And for those of us in this industry, it kind of carries a weighty term, if you will. It feels like it's got weight because it's usually ultra high net worth individuals and their families have a family office. And it's because their financial lives are incredibly complex. And probably their regular lives have some complexity to the logistical thing of managing vacation homes and all that type of stuff, and their business interests overlapping their personal interests. So, but it usually comes with this white glove service connotation. But one of the things that you mentioned is that you're seeing advisors have a lot of success by creating opportunities for extended families to get together, right? So they're basically going, hey, let's get the heirs, the extended family together and make this a family gathering, kind of a byproduct. And as a result, the advisor's firm gets to kind of see everybody there and build those connections. I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing a couple of examples of what you and the team have been seeing as effective ways for getting the family together and kind of bridging the gap, if you will, to connect with the family members.
Thank you for the question. So I'll give you a couple of anecdotes. The first one is dates back about 5 years ago. So this was pre-pandemic, didn't know what Zoom was at the time. This was old school, but one of our advisors in our Pasadena office knew that Thanksgiving weekend was a time that many of his clients' children and extended family members would be coming to town. They were going to gather around a table on Thanksgiving Day, and he knew they were probably going to stay through the weekend. So he had this really creative idea, I thought. He booked a photography studio for an entire day. He hired the photographer and he said, I want to have private photography sessions for my clients and their extended families as they come in. And I know they're going to be in town for that weekend. So starting at 9 a.m. on the Friday, Black Friday, he had these hour-long sessions, and he just camped out at the studio that day and was there to greet all of his clients. At the end of it, the client wanted to buy photographs. They could go on the photography studio's website as we normally would. But I think the advisor suddenly positioned himself as a different kind of family advisor in that he was gathering the family. He was making memories that they were going to be permanent because they were going to be on photograph. And even the extended family members were probably scratching their heads saying, this is odd, but it's kind of cool. We're getting a family picture out of this. And we didn't know this was happening. And so then let me fast forward to COVID hits, and we all get sent home by our management in March 16th of 2020, and quickly are scrambling just to get connectivity of our advisors, and the markets are volatile for obvious reasons. And so advisors are smiling and dialing and doing whatever they can to communicate with clients. And it was a very uncertain time. Well, within a month or two, many companies, ours included, had embraced Zoom technology or one of these other virtual platforms. And advisors realize some important things. I can call a family meeting and nobody can travel, but nobody has to do anything more than click on a link in an email I'm sending them. And so I remember one of the first family meetings I convened, and I didn't really see it as a family meeting. I was just doing an annual review during a very strange time. But because of the travel restrictions at the time, I was having to link in people who were in 3 different parts of the country. And sure enough, we clicked it. This was probably early May of 2020. And so I clicked on the link and I was the host waiting for people to join in. Then I saw this 20-something son click in. He was stuck back at school at Villanova. And then I saw the parents click in, and they were in Central California. And then I saw the sister click in, and she was in San Francisco. And to literally, Mike and John, see the parents lean in and look at the face of their kids who they hadn't seen.
Yeah.
The son had grown a partial scruffy beard. He was doing his COVID, I'm not going to shave thing. And the parents were teasing him about that. And for obvious reasons, the light bulb went on for me at that time. And I realized, gosh, we have the ability to connect people that haven't been together and can't see when they're going to be together, but the advisor can be that quarterback. And similar to that photography studio, it's the advisor who's been the central person in bringing folks together. And now I have Zoom conferences with clients all over the world. I've got several clients in Israel and Tel Aviv, and we just have to worry about the time zone difference, but they'll click right in, and it's so much more effective than a phone call to actually see the face, to see the facial expressions, the concern, that it's more personal. Nobody wants to be on an extended Zoom call. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, for really reinforcing the relationship, nothing better than looking somebody in the eye, just as we're doing right here.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's really a big sea change, that comfort with technology, right? Prior to the pandemic, no one really was all that comfortable with this stuff. There was a few leading advisors I know that we worked with that were using it, but they were very much on the bleeding edge, and everyone else looked at them like an outlier. And now everyone, grandma included, can use Zoom, can get together, and you see this really commonly. It's pretty amazing difference in that technology's made as a result of this, sort of forced migration.
Absolutely.
And you think about multi-generational approach to wealth management that you've been talking about here, and there's obvious benefits. Asset retention being the most obvious, but there's some additional challenges. And we just talked about geography, right? So families are often dispersed, and that's one technical way to deal with some of that. And everyone's at different life stages. They all have different goals and preferences for communications that we talked about. I'm curious, what role do you see technology beyond the Zoom, playing to address those challenges? Are there other technologies that sort of allow you to bring generations together that you've used or seen?
Oh, absolutely. I think CRM, the customer relationship management software that most companies have, is being dramatically underutilized. There are capabilities for using that software to do so much more than just a mail merge letter, or to record some notes from a conversation so you have a memory next time you talk with them 12 months from now. Important milestones like we were talking about, a birth, a death, a birthday, their anniversary. We have an advisor who, a week before every one of his male clients' anniversaries, he calls them and reminds them, next Tuesday is your anniversary. Don't be a schmuck and forget. And, it seems silly. And yet, boy, if he saved one client's bacon on that anniversary, miss. And it was just CRM that was pulling the list off for him a week beforehand. And it was a simple report that he had his sales assistant program in and run. I want to know everybody who's got an anniversary next week. So I think CRM software, it doesn't have to be the most sophisticated thing. There's some off-the-shelf ones that people can plug information into to just make them smarter, to connecting dots, to finding out, yeah, you can put all the beneficiaries in. Many people, I always find that the beginning of the year is a great time to stop people and make them refresh their beneficiary designations on all their retirement accounts and look at the TOD beneficiaries, make sure they're all still current. Because life happens, things change, people's decisions change along the way. If advisors aren't capturing that beneficiary info, I mean, that's where the assets are going to go, right? So it makes sense to learn about those people and to incorporate in their planning, appointments with them, and maybe they just have them on one of their virtual meetings. But bit by bit, using simple technology to just build those bridges with the next generation, or whoever the inheritor of the assets is going to be. If they're not reaching out, the default will be that beneficiary is going to use somebody in their neighborhood, somebody they already know, perhaps a recommendation from their own CPA or their own estate attorney, and it's a needlessly lost opportunity because the advisor has the power in their hands right now and the information at their fingertips, because it's got to be current in their books and records at their firm to know exactly what the client's plans are. And so I think CRM, I think simple reports that you can run out of it that connect the dots about milestone events. And it's important for advisors to recognize that their clients have lives and occupations and hopes and dreams. And if they've done a comprehensive financial plan for them, they probably have listed a lot of those important things. But gosh, we put in your financial plan that you were planning on retiring in 2023. I better be contacting that client today saying, gosh, we're 12 months out. Are you still on track? Are you still feeling okay about that? Boy, the market's been kind of volatile this year. Is that changing your retirement date at all, or your thought process about? So there's just a lot of things advisors can do, and simply use their CRM software to be smarter about how they're spending their time in interacting with clients and not losing assets to beneficiaries they just never reached out to.
I also think about the nature of that client review process that you just talked about when, thinking about it on Zoom and you've got multiple generations of the family on the line. That doesn't exactly scream, a paper or PDF report, right? It's a much more interactive session than we've ever done before as an industry.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how this change it's really changing everything that we do as an industry.
Right. It really is. And actually, you can watch any of the news broadcasts take CNBC, for example. If you watch for 20 minutes, I guarantee you'll see a commercial from a firm in our industry that shows an advisor, maybe not even in an office talking to the client, maybe over their kitchen table, maybe with an iPad and not a printed report, not the days of big spiral-bound books and trying to impress with heft and all that stuff. No, it's about reaching your goals and being on track with your financial progress. And you can do that conversationally in a coffee shop and not wanting to disclose confidential information, but you can do it in a different setting. I'm Zooming to you right now from an office in downtown Los Angeles, and it's a ghost town. The return to office hasn't happened yet. But for me, if my practice required a client to brave Los Angeles traffic and come to this ghost town downtown and find parking, which is probably $40 an hour or something, I'm putting a lot of hurdles and speed bumps in the way of that. But if I can find a way to meet them where they are, or to conveniently give them a link that they're just as happy with, and I could share my screen and show any illustration right there, we can avoid the paperwork. I can always send it to them and follow up. But boy, what a great way to facilitate more business and to keep me working for my clients longer and spending less time just trying to get from A to B, or giving back more of their days because they're not traveling to come see me or crossing town and get behind an accident or what have you. So it's an exciting time.
I think it's
Life is different, but it sounds so much better.
yeah. Well, it's funny, we hit on this a little bit, like, we don't have to be in the same place anymore, and clients don't expect PDFs or printed spiral bound books anymore. There's one other look by extension. I don't think clients expect their financial advisor to have to live in the same town they do anymore, right? What does it matter if you're in California, John's in Boston, I'm here in Austin, Texas? Right now, we're having a live face-to-face conversation, a vibrant conversation, sharing meaningful things. Why do my clients have to be here in Austin? Why can't they be in LA or Boston or whatever? And
That's it.
The theme
That's
here
very
of
true.
connecting with the heirs. Well, as you get those heirs together and the extended family together on Zoom or for whatever other reason, well, chances are, I mean, John just mentioned that one of his kids is on the way home from college in another state. You mentioned that one of your clients had a kid at Villanova, right? And my son is getting ready to go to college, and he's probably thinking about some other places outside of Texas. So it's really fascinating to start to think about, like, you can diversify your business in terms of location constraints by simply connecting with heirs, because chances are they are going all around the country. Have you seen that happening in your firm, where advisors and maybe even yourself are just like, starting to deal with clients that are just outside your geographical nexus, just as an extension of these types of...
Absolutely. Well, what the great migration happened right under our noses. COVID hits, and suddenly kids, they couldn't go home, so they were stuck wherever they were, and other family members couldn't. So, and then many people said, "Gosh, if I'm going to be working on a laptop, my vacation home's a nicer spot than sitting in my living room." So people spread out, and it wasn't that was, I think, a sea change of mindset for advisors to realize, okay, they moved or they couldn't move, but their money's still important to them, and I still have a fiduciary responsibility to help them. But it doesn't matter where they are. I mean, it doesn't matter where I am. When probably the three of us first opened a bank account, we had our local bank, right? It was a place. We went to it. We had a passbook savings account. They would stamp it. But that was our bank. Where's your bank now? It's probably in your grocery store at an ATM, or it's on a street corner. So gone are the days, I think, where people have to babysit or go visit their money, so to speak, that they have to go to a physical place because this is where my money's at. We know our money's not there. We've all seen It's a Wonderful Life. We know the money gets lent out. We know what we want is that trusted advisor, that person with whom we have a trusted relationship, to make time to meet with us and to wherever we are. And even if it's interrupting a vacation because you have something important that you need to convey, or you're concerned about an ACH that didn't go out for some reason, gosh, that there's not a website that can replicate that, right? It's a human being to human being say, I care about you. I saw this happened. I'm going to fix it. Do you need me to do anything in the interim? And it's powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. At Blue Leaf, we've seen the same exact trend of our customers, most of whom are RIAs. Almost half have more than 20% of their business outside of their local geography now.
Wow.
I mean, it's massive, and the shift was coming, but I'll tell you what, COVID and the shutdown really accelerated it.
Right. Exactly.
That is fascinating. Exactly. You really want to connect with some young people, by the way. Remind them of, like, when you used to get paid and you had to go to this place called the bank and stand in line and write out a deposit ticket and wait to get up to the window and then say, okay, I want to deposit, $200 from my paycheck, and I'll take $50 back to have cash in my pocket. Like,
what? No photo of the check? Mike?
Yeah, no photo of the check. But that is one of the greatest inventions of all time. I don't get paid my check all that often, but every once in a while a check comes. You're like, I don't have to even go to a bank. I can just pull open my bank app and snap a picture, and it's done. That's amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah. We've come so far, but we have to embrace these new tools that we have available to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's interesting. We have come so far, and clients have come so far, but I wonder, as an industry, if our mindset's caught up yet with where reality is. And, if you think about the way that, any of us interact with the services that we use most, and, none of us are really spring chickens. But I bet mostly we're interacting on our mobile phone. We're mostly interacting via email, et cetera. And that's how the clients in the industry are doing this. Our grandparents are on Facebook on their phones looking at their grandkids.
Yeah.
That's the world today. And sometimes when I talk to advisors about this, they're the ones who will say, "Oh, my clients don't do that."
Yeah.
But then as soon as you actually just try and explore that even a little bit, all their clients are, out on the internet. They're doing all these things, and the advisor just wasn't aware, because why would they? I mean, the client's not going to report that.
Yeah.
Looking down here, because I want to show you something that reinforces what you just said, John. This is my homepage on my iPhone. Why are these icons on my homepage? It's the first thing I get to see. It's the most convenient place for me to press a button and have something of access to me. People who, the advisor think, well, why isn't the DA Davidson app on your homepage? I go, well, what are you going to do to move it up to the homepage? If the things most important and most relevant at the, thumbprint activation of their phone is not there, then, but what is there? You select Twitter, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, whatever it is, and you can learn a lot about where your clients are living. Just as you're saying, John, they've got access to things that are important to them with the press of a button, and I think the advisor wants to be one of those buttons.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely. And you want DA Davidson to be one of those buttons.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't make the homepage, if you've got some nice native notifications that ping them from time to time with useful information, you're in their life, you're in their hand. It's so important. I mean, that's what we do for a living, right? Like, we put advisors in there and help them manage that client interaction, and helping them think differently about how to accomplish that, and not have to have them be a technical expert or a multi-channel communication expert, right? But that's where it's at now. It's not just a piece of paper. It's mobile, it's web, it's email, it's SMS, and it's thinking about that as the way that those all interact to create a client experience. And being multi-generational really brings that all together.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I know we're getting close to the end of our time here, but I wanted to see if I can grab one more tip out of you. And we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I just want to kind of dig in a little bit deeper. We talked about things that advisors can do to connect to younger generations, right? We spent a little bit of time talking about making sure you're active on social and so forth. But I think there's another level just kind of deeper than that. And we joked, actually, somebody brought up the whole, your dad's Oldsmobile earlier in the conversation. And I actually think if we talk to people who are under 30, they'd be like, what's an Oldsmobile? Right? Right? They've never heard, because GM deprecated that brand of car for a while ago. I saw something, this killed me. I saw something not too long ago. Somebody shared something on social. It says, it's amazing how often I think of oh yeah, a couple of years ago, that movie came out or that show was on or whatever. And then I realized, oh no, it actually happened 15 or 20 years ago. That's how you know you're getting old. You're like, darn it. that actually wasn't all that recent that movie came out. So I wonder if there's a few strategies that you have used to ensure that, you stay current, and what do you think some advisors, if they can steal some of those strategies as well?
Boy, start close to home. If you're an advisor that has kids, they're the ones probably fixing your smartphone when it glitches anyways. Pay attention to what's important to them and what they're watching, how they get their news, how they're consuming media, what they know of headlines and the like. I learn immensely from just observing the behavior of my kids. If you don't have kids, certainly there's probably nieces or nephews, or maybe you're coaching a team, and get around the younger generation and pay attention to what they're saying. If going back to my very first MoneyWise presentation, and you're gonna laugh because you're gonna say, "Gee, Crowell, you're not very perceptive. Great idea, wrong execution." I went to my first session with a group of 18 teenagers in the Crenshaw district of Los Angeles, straight from the office, which meant I walked into the YMCA dressed the way I am right now.
Yeah.
Do I look relevant or approachable or even current to any of those teenagers? Of course not. So the tie got ripped off. I threw away the jacket. I tried to roll up my sleeves, and if I had just teleported myself into that scene first, I would have said, yeah, I'm going to wear a t-shirt, or do I have a YMCA t-shirt? Yeah. What can I put on? So I think observe the kids around you and what they're doing. I think also just paying attention to all of the notifications and commercials we see on media, that they're, even if they're not important or relevant yet, I think they want to be relevant and important. And so it's at least worthy of consideration that maybe this is something to pay attention to. We as an industry have to get out of the office in ways to think that you come to me, I fix your financial plan, and then you go off and live your life. Not so sure that's the way it should be done. I think there's a more personal, ongoing dialogue that can happen using these tools we've discussed. I think, I wear this silly thing on my wrist and it tracks my steps. If I'm sitting in a chair like I have been for almost an hour, it vibrates to tell me to get moving or to do something. And I think, boy, if the advisor could be that financial Fitbit for their clients to say, you're getting off track. What happened to these credit card balances and why are they growing so quick? Is there something we need to adjust? It's not just about stocks and bonds. A lot of us started there and we thought we're going to be the best stock picker or the best fund selector or the best whatever. And then we realized very quickly that that's one component of our client's financial life. They've got student loans to pay off. They've got credit card debt that should be addressed. We're in a rising interest rate environment right now, and if they didn't have a plan to consolidate or pay down that debt right now, you can promise them that their debt burden is going to be higher in the months going forward. As a financial advisor, we have to get out of our narrow-minded view of it and realize they have complex financial lives, and we can be a trusted financial advisor to them, but only if we're communicating with them on an ongoing basis and they see us as that financial quarterback, that financial Fitbit.
Really, really smart stuff. That's fantastic.
I love it.
Andrew, I'm really grateful that you were willing to come on the show and share all this wisdom and the experiences that you're having there. I'm sure that advisors and other audience members from the show are going to want to follow up to learn a little bit more. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you?
You've got my name on the screen. Find me on Twitter, find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. Try to get back to you within the same day. Love to continue the dialogue. This is a wonderful industry, and with all the advances in technology, I'm not sure investor returns and investor attainment of their financial goals has necessarily gotten a lot better. We talked about the literacy gap at the beginning of this. We have a great profession, and I would love to help any advisor get launched.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. I look forward to Cinco de Mayo 2023 with you.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm in.
We'll make it a tradition.
Perfect. Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Augmented Advisor podcast. It was fantastic to have you with us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Huge thanks to Andrew Crowell from D.A. Davidson as well for joining us. The mission he is pioneering of evangelizing the concept of financial advisors giving back to the community through financial literacy programs is absolutely fantastic. And as he says, this is truly a noble profession. As I mentioned at the top of the show, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform and do us a favor. Make sure you give the Blue Leaf page on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter a follow or like or whatever the platform supports. We share every episode across all the socials, and it would be wonderful to have you as part of our community. We'd love to chat with you. Okay, that's it for today. Please make sure you're staying safe and be nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Augmented Advisor Podcast. See ya. Bye.